Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know we have a lot of folks coming in, so just kicking it off, welcome to RegFest. I'm Cassandra Kubinski. I am an artist and a songwriter. I am really, really thrilled that all of you guys are here today. You are among great company. We are expecting to have hundreds of creators, songwriters, artists who are going to be here on RegFest today, and we are excited to level up together in terms of where our royalty streams are and how we get paid them. So if you're just coming in, I want to welcome you to RegFest. Again, I'm Cassandra Kubinski. Because there are so many of you registered for RegFest today, we had over 600 attendee or registrants, which is wild and awesome. There are a couple things. First of all, I just want to say thank you and congratulate you on taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and learn this important stuff that sometimes can seem to us as writers and artists like, oh man, kind of overwhelming, or I'm going to have to spend more time on a computer to do this, or it's so much to take in that I'm a little confused. So the fact that you made the time today and the space to come and learn this together in community is really meaningful. So first of all, applause to you for being here. Secondly, because there's so many of you, you're not going to be able to see each other in the chat, but we can see you. So as moderators and panelists, we are going to be able to see what you put in the chat. So I would love to invite you, if you're here, to jump into that chat and just share who's here. Share your name, what role you play in the industry, where you're based, and we'll just give everybody like another quick minute to hop into the session. Hey, Jeff. All right, from Connecticut. Hello. Wow, been a while. All right, so we have folks coming in from New Jersey. We have folks coming in from Houston, from Hawaii, from New York, from San Francisco, British Columbia, Sydney, Idaho, Phoenix, Boston, Canada. This is just incredible. Just a waterfall of incredible creatives on this call. We've got studio folks, we've got songwriters, we have got people uh, at video, we've got artists. Wow, this is incredible. Seriously. NYC, Tulsa, Knoxville, Brooklyn, producers. Okay, so this is going to be a robust and amazing session today because we have such an incredible creative community on this call. All right, so let's get started, guys. Again, my name is Cassandra Kubinski. I am a songwriter and artist alongside you. I'm in the trenches just like you are, working every day on writing and producing and performing, and then trying to figure out like where the revenue streams for that, right? How do we get paid for all of this? I am a staunch advocate not only for our creative freedom, but for further creative freedom through the knowledge and the automation of these systems so that we can get paid for our work. And that's something that I'm super passionate about. So the other thing I'm super passionate about are the amazing panelists who are here today, the folks I'm going to be in conversation with to help us debunk, demystify, and clarify what these income streams are and how we claim them. So at the end of this event, RegFest, what we are intending for you is that you will understand where you need to register to monetize a couple things. First of all, your underlying compositions, so like your actual songs, your masters, which are the recordings of your songs, and the performances of those pieces of music or songs. Another outcome that we want for you is that you are able to claim all of your income streams by getting it automated. So set it up once, collect forever. And another major outcome that we want for you is that you feel confident that you know how to protect and secure your work in case of an infringement, and that you really understand how that relates to monetization. I know that that was something that was a little confusing for me when I got started out, so we're going to be covering that today as well. Before we get going, just huge thanks to the MLC who supported this event, and also to our co-presenting partner, Cosynd, our copyright experts. So both of these organizations do so much for the music industry, and this event would not have been possible without their support. So thanks to them. All right, so who do we have here today? We're going to be chatting with Jen Ferrer, who's from Two Loss, a distributor. We're going to talk about distribution. We've got Katie from BMI, which is a performing rights organization, Mark from Sound Exchange, Jamie from the MLC, and Jessica from Cosynd. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to bring each of them on individually to break down what each type of organization does, what they pay, how to make sure you are set up to get paid. Now, as you guys know, time is limited and valuable, right? So we are going to be moving through each one of these types of companies at about like 10 minutes a piece. What that means is that we're not doing a huge, super deep dive. We're trying to make sure that you get the basics of, again, what they pay, who gets paid, meaning, is that you? Like, do you need to register, or is that irrelevant for you in the role that you're playing? How you register to get paid. And then we want to empower you and set you up to actually be able to do that, to register and get paid. So a note about the Q&A, right? A lot of questions are going to come up on this Zoom, most likely. So what we need for you guys to do if you have questions as they come up is to put them in the Q&A box, all right? And you can see Lacey from MLC support is right there in the chat and has already mentioned that. So that's how we can see your questions, is to put them in the Q&A box. I would recommend like if you know you already have a question, hold off until we get to the section that it's maybe about, see if we're answering it. And if not, then drop that in the Q&A. And as we go, I will attempt to facilitate to answer questions that come up in the moment, but we are going to have all of the panelists back on at the end for kind of a, Brady Bunch, like boxes on the screen type Q&A session where we will dive in and answer as many questions as possible. Okay. So I think that's all of the housekeeping. I think so. So let us dive into RegFest. So first things first, right? A lot of questions start with, hey, I just have a song or I have a recording and I want to get it out there. And that's the first thing. A lot of the artists and the songwriters that I work with, that's kind of like, if they could do that, they're happy. They're not even thinking about like, where do I need to register to get like rights and royalty streams? They're just like, how do I get my song out there? And that in this digital day and age starts with the distributor. So I would love to invite up Jen Farrer, who's a senior product manager from Two Lost Distribution. And let's get into monetization through distributors and what distributors do.
Let's do it.
Hey, welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, all right, let's chat distribution. These days, lots of choices in distributors. People might have heard about different distribution companies. Distributors might offer different services under one roof. But what is the main function of a distributor? Like, basically, what would all distributors be managing or handling? What function does a distributor fulfill?
Totally. Well, at the most basic level, a distributor gets your musical product to market and tracks consumption and makes sure you get paid what you're owed for that product that you put through to all the different stores and services. Obviously, there's more advanced partnerships where there's other services involved, maybe pub admin, but at the very, very basic level, all distributors are getting your product to DSPs, digital service providers, stores, where you can either stream or download music, or in some cases play it in a jukebox out in public at your favorite bar or stuff like that. So there's many, many, many different DSPs available globally. And your distributor is supposed to make you available in those places with your music.
So that would be an example of a DSP would be a Spotify, an Apple Music, Tidal
Apple
Music, YouTube,
absolutely,
music, the music side of YouTube, right? So, so for anybody who's out there thinking, does the distributor also handle getting my CDs or my vinyl out there? Is that something that a distributor does?
Sure. So physical distribution may be a dying art, but yeah, absolutely. Some do. I think, distribution is maybe one of the most competitive areas of the music industry. It is available. I could make a song tonight and find a distributor online tomorrow and get it up hopefully in a week or two. So physical is obviously a much more intense process with actually like reaching out to Amoeba or Amazon or Walmart and making sure that, the new Kesha vinyl is going to be available on release day. So yeah, I would say The more basic kind of SaaS model sign up off the street distributors probably don't offer distribution. So you'll have to either go to a boutique or find some manufacturers now actually will offer small distribution like locally. But otherwise, more so the bigger sort of deal only ones, people where you are approached to get into a distribution partnership with, those are more likely to offer physical. But I would say, you know, the ones that you are, if after this, if you go Google distribution, most of those are going to be digital only.
Fantastic. So for somebody who signs up with a distributor and now they're ready to upload their tracks, they're going to put out a single or an album or whatever format they're going to put out. What are the revenue sources that you're going to see paid through the distributor? Like when the distributor pays you, this is what, you're actually getting paid for.
Absolutely. Streaming royalties, download royalties, so everything on sort of the master side, and later we'll talk about publishing, and these stores pay that out as well. And well, I'll leave that to the other experts to speak on that, but we're mostly handling the master side. Streaming royalties. So whenever you are either a free user or a paid user of a service like Apple Music or Spotify, and you click listen, 30 seconds go by, that counts as a stream. And now that's like one unit of listening that is going to get paid to the rights holder. Download sales as well. There's maybe another dying art, but people still download music on Amazon Music, Beatport, iTunes. That's a big DJ thing. So if you make electronic music, you should make sure your music is available to be downloaded so DJs can play it. What else? Some, I guess, more optional and maybe a little more advanced would be like content ID or user generated content. Monetizing the use of your music on social media platforms is another one that will be collecting on your behalf and providing those analytics and making sure you're seeing where exactly the use is happening for your product.
Great. And so I just want to clarify for everybody out there that, like Jen is saying, often with distributors, there's sort of a baseline mix of revenue streams to get paid. And then there are some that are optional, right? Jen, you're saying you can maybe opt in to say, yes, I would like Too Lost to collect and distribute my content ID, or like, yes, I would like them to collect and distribute some variety of like sync licensing ID, right? Like that might, or sync licensing revenue, that might be a
Precisely.
possibility inside of a distributor.
Precisely. We're rolling out sync licensing now as something that will be available eventually to all of our users. Obviously, we're kind of like beta testing with some of our, longtime partners in the space. But yeah, we also offer pub admin as well. If you're, a one-stop shop and you're just looking for everything, you can sign up for Too Lost and sign up for pub admin, and we'll be collecting on your behalf on that side as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. So as far as the process of signing up with a distributor, and I really acknowledge that it's different for every distributor, that they each have their own kind of intake process. But if you can sort of generically speak to like the registration or sign up process to work with a distributor, can you give us any insight into like how does somebody go about, getting a distributor or working with a distributor?
Totally. I think that part is really important to do your own research and see what the different companies offer. So if your music belongs internationally, maybe you are from somewhere else and you now live in the US, but you want to make sure it's available in certain stores in China. You should do your research and make sure they deliver there and make sure that's available to you if you're just kind of signing up and subscribing to like a SaaS model of some kind. Once you do have, all the artwork and the audio file and song titles and credits and all of that, and you do decide who you want to go with, make an account, sign up, and usually it's as easy as finding the uploader button, clicking it, and start filling out the forms with all of that information that you already have prepared alongside your art. So if it is maybe a remix or something, or you have a featured artist available, you can connect them to it and make sure in the upload process, everything is kind of outlined properly so that when it does get to market, it reflects how you wanted it to look on platform.
Fantastic. And once I'm signed up with a distributor, What's the process for getting paid? Like, is there sort of a standard as far as how often I get paid, how automated that is?
Yeah, I mean, it really is up to the DSPs. So if we aren't paid by the DSPs, you're not going to be able to see your analytics. You're not going to get that money. And all the different stores and services pay at different rates. Um, Typically, when you first sign up, that first payment is going to be delayed by 2 to 3 months, sometimes more, based on the rolling basis of accounting at the different stores. Most distributors, maybe not most, but a lot of them pay monthly. And again, due to the rolling basis, it could be that a certain partner in, again, Europe or something that's maybe smaller, they only pay quarterly or they only pay every other month. So 1 month you might see a big fat check with all of your stuff from international royalties, ringtones, all this stuff. And then the next it's back to just a month of your Spotify payment. Another thing to think of is the delay. So if I put a song out tomorrow and someone streams it, I'm not going to see that much. Sure, on Spotify, I'll see all these streams and stuff, and I'll see all the analytics, but that's not going to be accounted for until a few months later. So it might not be until April that I see the money from the streams that happened in January.
Okay. I see a question in the Q&A that we might be able to just grab here. How important is metadata when uploading your songs to be distributed?
It's super important. That's the only way we'll be able to track consumption and then make sure it gets back to you properly. So a lot of distributors, labels too, do this. They'll buy out a batch of identifiers. So UPCs, ISRCs, little registration codes that are attached to the product. And you want to keep those the same. If you change distributors, you always want your metadata to be the same so that you can track that properly and get paid for all of those streams, any downloads, anything connected to that identifier. So metadata is king if you want to make sure you're making all the money that you're owed on your art.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that overview. Again, since we're covering so much today, we're really covering just like an overview of what are the income sources, who's getting paid for them, and how you register to get paid. So we're going to pause there on distribution. We're going to move on to talk about the songs that are most likely embedded in your masters, these recordings that you would go ahead and distribute. So thank you so much, Jen, for hopping on. And I'm going to bring on Katie from BMI, which is a performing rights organization. And we are going to start out by, hi, Katie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me and for starting RegFest. I feel like this is such a great way to clear up like all the confusion that's out there about income streams and who pays what. So thank you for putting all this together, Cassandra, and for having
Yes,
me. This is awesome.
absolutely. My pleasure. And it's a win because we're all here together, right? Like we all recognize that, there's a certain point where we say, yes, this is all the info is crashing into each other, and how do we kind of like make sense of it
Totally.
all?
Yeah.
And I'm for sure, guys, just for our attendees, I do want to acknowledge, I do see so many of your great questions in the Q&A, and I think we're going to be able to breeze through a lot of that when we all come back on. I just want to make sure that we have like the right person to answer that for you. So if I'm not answering it in the moment, know that that's why. So Katie, what the heck is a PRO?
Yeah, so a PRO, there are so many acronyms, right? In like all of our worlds, BMI, MLC, like I feel like it's good to just clear it up. Sometimes it's good to spell things out a bit. So a PRO is also known as a performing rights organization, obviously PRO for short, and it's our responsibility to protect the public performance of your music. So we protect the copyright to ensure that songwriters, composers, music publishers are fairly compensated for the use of their work. So, as a songwriter of a composition, which is the lyrics and the melody of a song, you're entitled to performance royalties whenever your music is performed publicly. So, this could mean when your music is played out at a bar, at a restaurant, a fitness club, a live concert venue, on the radio, on streaming platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and so many more. There's music used everywhere. It's kind of ubiquitous, right? So, it was really our job and the reason that we were founded all the way back in 1939 was to represent songwriters in emerging genres that couldn't find a home to be represented anywhere else. Genres like jazz, blues, country, songwriters who were writing that music that was becoming extremely popular during that time in the US didn't, have anywhere to protect the public performances of their music. And that's why BMI was founded. And then fast forward to today, we are the largest music rights organization in the US, and we're still nurturing new talent and new music every single day. So that's a little bit about BMI.
Awesome. So just a couple key distinctions in there for everybody. Again, PRO equals Performing Rights Organization. And
Yep.
who gets paid are the writers and the publishers. Okay. So like if you are the writer of a song, you are going to receive your performing rights royalties from a PRO like BMI.
Yes.
And there's also a publishing side, which we maybe are going to have time to kind of parse like what the difference is there between the writer and
100%.
the publisher side. So again, if you are just the artist, I shouldn't say just the artist, but like if you're the artist and you have recorded a song that was written and or published by somebody else, you're not going to be deriving that particular income stream from a PRO. But these days, right, most artists are songwriters in some way. And what that means is that unless you sign a publishing deal or assign your publishing in another manner, you're also a publisher. Newsflash,
Correct.
all writers
Yep.
are publishers. So can we talk about that really quick? How does
Yeah.
that, yeah. So like, what is that writer publisher side when it comes to performing rights?
Of course. Yeah, I think it does get a little bit confusing sometimes for people. We get this question all the time because, there's so many different, ways that music is used. And so that's why all these different types and royalties exist, and they're generated for them just because the music is used in so many different ways, whether it's played out loud or used in like a film attached to a moving picture and a sync. But I think the most important distinction is the composition side versus the master side, right? So, and it's kind of exactly what you said too, Cassandra. Some artists also write their own stuff, and songwriter can kind of be an umbrella term, right? Because producers, composers, lyricists, their top liners, those are all songwriters. I like to think of it and explain it as anybody who helps to contribute to the creation of a song, right? The creators. But not all artists do write their own stuff. Some artists cut songs that are written by other people. They might not be in the room at the time the song is written or created. They're just going into the studio and recording that song. So the important distinction, I think, is that BMI pays out on the composition side. So that's the lyrics and the melody of a song. The master side, which I'm sure my friend Jamie at the MLC can talk a little bit more about as well, covers the mechanical royalty. So that's the sound recording. So the composition, just think of it as sheet music, right? Like that's what's written out. It's the lyrics, it's the melody of a song. Songwriters go in and they're creating this. Sometimes an artist has a percentage if they contributed to that and it's fair, and other times they don't. So I think that's the important distinction, is that BMI only pays out the performance royalty. If there's anything that you take away from this presentation, it's that BMI is only the performance royalty. We're not your publisher. We don't own any of your music. We're just licensing that music for you on your behalf. We're not a label. We're not a distributor. We are not the copyright office. I feel like that's a big question we get a lot of the time too, is does registering my music with BMI mean that it's copyrighted? And it does not. So copywriting is a completely different process that you go through with the US Copyright Office. At BMI, when you're registering your songs with us, you're allowing us to track the airplay of those songs so that we can accurately pay you your performance royalties for how many streams it got, what airplay it was receiving, and that sort of thing. So hopefully that answered your question. I think I went into a little rabbit hole there.
Definitely. No, that's okay. And so you did sort of point at something that I want to clarify as well, which is
Sure.
that a performing rights organization may offer an option as well for writers and or artists to manually submit when they have performed their works and then get paid for those
Yes.
public performances. I know in BMI that's under the BMI Live program
Yes.
offering.
Yeah, BMI Live is a really great opportunity for writers who are also performing their stuff out on the road to receive extra royalties for those live performances at BMI licensed venues. And like Cassandra said, you can go to bmi.com/BMI Live to submit your set list. Like I said, it's domestic only as of right now. So for US performances at BMI licensed venues, you can submit up to 6 months of your set list to be considered for payment. So that's a really great thing to know as well. And I think another point to touch on, Cassandra, that you mentioned was when you sign up with BMI, you have the choice to affiliate as a songwriter, as a publisher, or as both. So we're the only PRO where you can, like you don't have to set up your publishing entity right away when you're signing up as a songwriter. I think sometimes that can be an intimidating process. You're like, I'm not, I don't know if I'm a publisher, but as Cassandra said, an important point is when you are a writer and you're releasing music, you own that music. You are the owner and the publisher. Until you assign those rights away or sign into a publishing deal with a larger corporation or whatever you choose to do, you are in control of that music and you are the publisher. So it's always kind of my advice when people sign up, even though you have the option to join just as a songwriter and you're not required to set up a publishing entity. I always encourage songwriters to create a publishing entity at the time that they sign up, that they create their writer's account, because it'll alleviate a lot of the stress and the headache having to do later on with cleaning up your catalog, adding a publisher onto your works. And should you, later on down the road decide to sign into a publishing deal, or if you happen to want to start your own publishing company and represent other songwriters, it's great to have that entity set up. You can set up a DBA, an LLC, and you can do that all on the BMI website at bmi.com/join. So you can also review what I always think is important and I stress all the time. You can review the contract that you're signing, like before you even apply online. There's like a standard writer agreement, standard publisher agreement. I always say read everything and understand it before you're signing it. I think that's just a rule of life. But those are available for you to also see and review online before you like set up anything or join as a writer. But it's super easy. Do it. It takes 10 minutes on the website. And I'm always here too for questions if anybody has questions on how to sign up.
Awesome. So for PROs, and I know it differs for some of our folks that are on here internationally.
Yeah.
They might have a specific performing rights organization in their country. But in the US, what options do people have for PROs?
Sure thing. Yeah. So there's four main PROs that exist in the US. There's BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, and GMR, again, with all the acronyms. So they all, like I said, we all kind of at the end of the day, we do the same thing. Our job is to pay our affiliates fairly and maximize opportunities to earn performance royalties when their songs are being played publicly. And if you're a songwriter and you live outside of the US, or you're, like you have citizenship in a different country, but you live here now and let's say you're signed up with PRS, which is the UK's performing rights organization, or SACEM, which represents songwriters in France. BMI has reciprocal representation agreements with all of those societies all over the world. So they also send us airplay data that gets paid out in our foreign distributions as well. So you're not leaving any royalties out on the table. But yeah, like I said, there's four big PROs that exist. And we all kind of at the end of the day, it's about a relationship and who you feel comfortable reaching out to, and wherever you're signed up, leveraging those opportunities that are available to you. Like BMI has a great creative team and an incredible network we're based in all the major markets: New York, Nashville, LA, Atlanta, Miami, Austin. We have an office in London too. We have boots on the ground in DC that we have people constantly lobbying for songwriter rights on Capitol Hill. And we just launched the Spark program too in partnership with Cosynd, which is a really great way to help creators thrive in every stage of their career and offer special discounts on valuable career insights and educational tools. So definitely check that out too when you have the chance.
Cool. That was one of the questions I saw in the chat was, what is BMI Spark? So it sounds like that is a program that's designed to support songwriters with some really cool, just artist up-leveling information, education, and
Totally.
also actual discounts.
Totally. Yeah, it's brand new.
Awesome.
We just launched it. Yeah, there's three areas kind of a focus. There's career development, lifestyle and well-being, learn and connect. And some of the partners that we started in the inaugural launch are BandLab, Berkeley Online, Cosynd, Disco for Artists, Lander. So it's a really, really great program designed to just help uplift our songwriters and try to help them grow in their careers.
Amazing. So yeah, just to reiterate, guys, like in the landscape of the different choices you have for PROs, each of them has a different process for signing up. In order to learn what that is, you would just want to visit the different websites. So as always, when
Definitely.
you have choices in the marketplace, we always encourage you to research those choices. But I think, like Katie is saying,
Sure.
all of us, and I can certainly vouch for this as a writer and artist, have found that often, when in terms of like who's the best one to go with, right? Because that question comes up a lot. A lot of times, I personally think that comes down to who do you feel that you feel comfortable with, you have a vibe with, you have a relationship with, maybe you reached out and you got an answer from somebody.
Totally.
So when you're doing your research and you're checking into the various options, um, take that into consideration. Katie,
Yeah,
I
that
have
is the
one
cool
more
thing. You have a
question for
choice.
you.
Yeah, for sure.
So once somebody is signed up with a
Mhm.
PRO, right? Now they're registering their works, right? Because there's a process whereby you actually have to go in and register your songs so that BMI or whichever PRO knows what are they tracking,
Yeah.
what are they tracking and who are they paying? How often should people expect payments, and when should they expect those payments to start?
Yeah, so you should expect we pay out quarterly, so 4 times a year. And like you said, Cassandra, the most important thing to do after you're signed up with your PRO is register your songs as soon as possible because that's the only way that your PRO will know to pay you for the songs that are getting any airplay. So if you're releasing music publicly, that music is getting airplay, it's streaming really well, you won't want to delay registering the title so that you can begin collecting your performance royalties for those songs. So, for example, at BMI, our next distribution is going out on May 23rd. And that will cover the fourth quarter of 2024. So, any songs that were receiving enough airplay to generate royalties in the months of October, November, December of 2024. So, if you had songs that were released and they were getting plays during that time period, you should start to see the royalties trickle in for those works starting in May. So there's about a 6 to 9 month gap at BMI specifically for when your song receives the airplay and when you'll start to receive the performance royalties for that particular song. So but you're going to want to register your songs as soon as possible. And to automate payment, like Cassandra said earlier, you're going to want to set up direct deposit as soon as you can. As soon as you create your online services account, go into your account and set up direct deposit, opt for that over checks. It's better for the environment. It's you get paid way faster. There's what much less confusion. You avoid things getting lost in the mail. I can't stress it enough. Like sign up for direct deposit. It's so great to like wake up and just see that the money is already in your account when you get your royalties.
Right.
But yeah, so we pay out 4 times a year.
Love it. Cool. So okay, so that's about our time, which of course that we could go
I know.
on.
Sorry, I
And
could. Yeah.
no, no, not at all. But I do want to say what's so great about this is because we have all of the questions in the Q&A box, there are some in there that are very BMI specific, and I feel like if you're
Sweet.
able to hop in maybe and answer those, would be amazing.
Yeah.
But thank you for being here, and we'll see you in a little bit when everybody hops back on.
Sounds
Um,
good. Thank you.
Amazing. So we're gonna move on, you guys. We're gonna move on and we're gonna talk about Sound Exchange, um, which is an organization that honestly I was confused about for a long time and I get a lot of questions about. So I want to welcome up Mark Rucker, who's the Associate Director of Artist and Industry Relations at Sound Exchange, so that we can better understand this organization and the revenue streams that come from it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
What's
for
up,
having me on.
Mark?
How
Yeah,
are we?
welcome. We are good. We are plowing through. Wow, it's like
Actually, I'm
so
learning a
much
lot
to
right
take
now
in.
too. This is awesome. This is great for me too. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad there's going to be a replay, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
wow, so much. So being able to go back and review is going to be so key. So let's just straight off the bat, what is Sound Exchange? What do you guys do? What do you protect? What do you pay?
Yeah, so Sound Exchange, we collect and distribute digital performance royalties for the featured performers and the sound recording copyright owners from non-interactive digital radio. That's a long word salad to say that if you are an artist or a performer or a sound recording copyright owner or a master owner, in the words that you'd used before, Cassandra, then you would want to sign up at Sound Exchange because when your sound recording is played on something that we call it non-interactive digital radio. All of this is a giant word salad because of the way the legalese is set up. But anything, a good example of is like SiriusXM or Pandora or Music Choice or iHeartRadio if it's streamed over the internet, but not in your car. Anytime that there's airplay of a sound recording on those DSPs specifically, again, non-interactive, meaning you can't skip, you can't go back, you can't select the song yourself. there's an additional royalty created for the performers and for the sound recording copyright owners. And so Sound Exchange is a government nonprofit that was created to collect and distribute these royalties. So we work with over 700,000 artists around the world, everyone from Paul McCartney to Beyonce to Taylor Swift, all the way down to the up and coming artists that are coming up today. So ultimately, that's what we do. And we've been doing it for over 20 years now. I think we're 21st year. We've distributed over $12 billion to creators in those 21 years. And we're hitting about $1 billion a year right now that's being paid out, which is a great number to be at.
Definitely. So again, just to clarify then, Sound Exchange is paying the owners of the sound recording, not the underlying music and lyrics. Like Katie was saying, that's what PROs do. But
Correct.
on the flip side, Sound Exchange is paying the master or recording owners. And also, as you said, the musicians or featured artists that are embedded on those recordings.
Correct. Yes. So when you guys write a song, you obviously have the underlying notes and lyrics, which creates a copyright for the songwriting and the publishing side. When you record a song, you have another copyright that would be called a sound recording copyright or a master. And when you record that, those sounds are fixed, right? The writer's not going to change, the publishing is not going to that's all there. So what we do is we collect again for the performers, the featured artist that's listed on that recording, and then for the master owner of that recording. So even if you're an artist that has released, obviously you might have your own recordings that you release where you record your own songs, but even if you record a cover song or live recordings, those are also recordings that you would set up and claim within Sound Exchange because those could be used on one of these digital service providers, for radio airplay. There's a great channel on SiriusXM called Coffee House where there's a ton of covers that come up of these pop covers, but a lot of people don't even recognize that that's an actual ability to collect on that, even though you didn't write the song, but it is your recording and you are the featured performer on it.
Yes. So are there other options for people to collect this income stream, or is Sound Exchange it? That's like, you guys are like, got to sign up with Sound Exchange or else you're not getting this money.
That's a great question. So yes, we are. I mean, we're the only ones in the United States that can collect this royalty directly. There are, distributors, different types of, organizations that have those add-on features that you can select the box and they can collect your rights owner portion, but they still cannot collect your featured artist portion. So no matter what, if you're an artist, you should always sign up at Sound Exchange directly. Also, internationally, we have agreements with over 87% of territories around the world. So we're the largest neighboring rights organization in the world, where we can collect your royalties from everywhere, so you don't have to sign up at multiple different places. And then a lot of people end up choosing the US because we are the fastest and biggest market. And so Sound Exchange actually offers that up. And so I would say no one else can really do what we do. It's not set up that way. And like I said, even if you do sign up with like a distributor that offers you, we'll collect your Sound Exchange royalties, they're only able to collect your rights owner portion, not your featured artist portion.
Okay, cool. So how do people sign up for Sound Exchange? What's the process?
Soundexchange.com. You can go to our website, check it out. The top right corner, it says register. And like a drop box or a pop-up will drop down and it'll show you like, hey, here's what you'll need. You'll need your government ID. You'll need information about the performer or the band or the rights owner. You'll need your tax information and then payment information. Where do you want the payment sent, right? And then through that, you will get set up with a login and then you'll get access to our Sound Exchange Direct portal. Through that portal, and similar to like kind of what Katie was saying, I'm sure a lot of our organizations work similarly, just about different rights, right? But you would register and then you would have to claim your recordings that are yours through our search and claim tool. And then once you claim those, they are associated to your account. So until they're associated with your account, we won't know to connect them with you. So the royalties that are being earned won't be sent to you until that's done. So I can't tell you how many times that people have registered and they've done the work all the way up until the very end, and then they didn't associate any recordings with their account, and that royalties just get held up. And so just full disclosure, Sound Exchange has a 3-year window before it can be released, which is similar to most organizations. So after a 3-year period, there's a chance that you might not be able to collect those royalties. So it's important to get that going and then making a consistent practice if you're continually releasing music maybe every once a quarter, once every 6 months, just reminding yourself to jump on and use the search and claim tool and just make sure you've claimed everything that's yours.
That's great. Is that related to the actual Excel that you can download and like send in the repertoire Excel that is on Sound Exchange? Or
Yeah.
is that like going about it a different way?
Yeah, so that's a great way to see what is associated with your account currently. But now we have this new tool where you can literally search your artist name. You can go into
Okay.
our database and search our name and select the boxes, and then those are manually looked through and work through with our fraud prevention and all that. But the idea is to make it as easy as possible for you guys to be able to associate these recordings with your accounts.
Great. Someone in the chat is asking if the master belongs to two different entities. Is there a way that like both of those parties get paid?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple of things. When you register, you're going to be asked, are you a performer? Are you a rights owner? Or are you both? So the first thing would be you start there, and sometimes kind of like what Katie was mentioning about writer, publisher, all that. But it's a good practice to know which was what you are. But then ultimately, again, when the sound recording is created, the featured artist or the featured performer won't change of that sound recording. That will always be the same. But like they just mentioned, there could be a change in ownership of the recording. So it could sign a label deal. It could have an agreement with the producer. It could have an agreement with somebody else, right? Specifically with the rights owner portion, you can, we have it set up in our system where you can split it up in percentages based off of how much you own, whether it's like 50-50 deal or 75-25 or something like that. But then also we do it based off of time. So that if you know, well, I own this for the first 3 years, so from inception until today, and then as of tomorrow moving forward, that'll go to this label or this owner at that point. So there's a lot of compatibility with that, and so that anybody that is working with several rights owners can actually go in and claim it themselves, so that it's not actually messy on your guys' end.
Cool. So after sign up, right, and after we've gone in and we've used the search and claim tool and we've claimed the recordings that are associated with our account, when should we start expecting to see payments, and how often are those payments distributed?
Yeah, so I like to say this a lot. One of the main things I wanted to point out to this is that this is the stuff that gives you the opportunity to get paid. I think somebody asked earlier, how important is metadata? And I'm like, that's really what we're all trying to accomplish here, is trying to get as clean and as easy as possible. So specifically with Sound Exchange, we are on quarterly payments unless you're on direct deposit. So if you want to be quarterly payments and you want physical checks, you can totally do that. That's a quarterly. If you want to be on monthly payments, those are on direct deposit. And so, but from the point of like airplay to when it gets to your account, generally about 45 to 60 days is the number we look at. So 90% of our royalties get paid out within 45 days. But those are songs that are associated with somebody's account already. And as soon as the airplay comes in, we're actually able to transact that and make that work as efficiently, as quickly as possible. But yeah, we process billions of transactions every single month. And so it's a tremendous undertaking, and our team is great at it. So it's awesome.
That's incredible. Cool. So again, I think I saw a little minute ago about a question about distinguishing between different entities. So yes, Heidi, we're about to hop into the MLC. So we're going to explain actually the difference between the MLC and Sound Exchange. There's a question about Harry Fox. Just, do you want to address, do you guys have any interface with Harry Fox? Anything related to Harry Fox? Can you give us like some insight into what the difference is between Sound Exchange and Harry Fox?
Yeah, I was going to say, technically we don't have really any affiliation with Harry Fox. I would say that's probably more. I think that's probably more MLC vibe, if I had to guess off the top of my head. But to say that, Sound Exchange really is its own entity, and we work with, again, rights owners and the featured artists of recordings. And then Sound Exchange is mandated to send 5% of our royalties to the SAG-AFTRA AFM Musicians Fund. So a couple other examples of people that would get paid through Sound Exchange, but not directly, I guess, would be backing musicians or background vocalists. You should definitely check with the AFM or SAG-AFTRA if you've been on recordings, because royalties get sent to them, and then they are the ones that have to divvy it out from there. And then also, I know that you had a producer in the room earlier. We do work with producers on letters of direction. And so a letter of direction for Sound Exchange is where a featured artist can say, I'm going to divert a certain percentage of what I'm earning through Sound Exchange on this song to this creative participant. 95% of the time it's a producer. And that's the only way a producer can get an account set up at Sound Exchange is through a letter of direction. Again, we're the only CMO, what Sound Exchange would be around the world that offers and honors letters of direction. So a lot of artists and producers love using that because it's kind of like, essentially at the end of the day, it's a nice free accounting tool so that you don't have to get to the end of the year and be like, oh, I owe this person X amount of dollars that I didn't save the entire year. I didn't know that I was gonna have to pay them, that type of thing. Sound Exchange is paying it out for you every month or every quarter, just like your royalties. So I just wanted to
Right.
highlight from the producer side.
No, that's important because we did have Michael in the Q&A asking, can producers use the search and claim tool or only submit LODs?
It's
So
only LODs, correct.
only LODs. Okay, cool. All right. Well, so let's switch it up and get on to the MLC, and we'll understand some of the nuances of the difference, like you said. But thank you so much, Mark, and we'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, so I want to welcome in Jamie Dominguez from the MLC. With, again, great thanks to the MLC for being really like the driver of this happening today and making RegFest possible for all of us. So welcome, Jamie. Oh, is Jamie on?
I'm here.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, sorry, lag time on my camera here.
All
Thanks for
good.
doing this. You're the best. This is amazing and so informative, even for all of us that work in this every day. So it's very necessary.
Yeah. Listen, I'm in some WhatsApp groups with some people and we're all, the questions go flying. And I was like, can we just get one place to try and at least get the overview of all of this? Sorry, I'm just seeing that my name has extra K's in it. That's my bad. Okay. So, hello. What does the MLC do? What do you guys protect?
Okay, so the MLC, we're the new acronym on the block. We live in a sea of acronyms, as Kate said. So the Mechanical Licensing Collective, or the MLC, we were just formed in 2020, so we're fairly new. We are the nonprofit organization that was designated by the U.S. Copyright Office to collect and distribute streaming royalties on behalf of songwriters and publishers. And this was after they passed the Music Modernization Act in 2018. So just going back a little bit to the Music Modernization Act, that established the MLC as the entity, basically that sort of modernized old copyright law for the digital age, because there was nothing in place. All of the digital service providers like Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music and Tidal, all of these streaming platforms had to go out and obtain licenses individually. And so it created this sort of streamlined process for the MLC to administer blanket licenses to all of these platforms, and then also collect the royalties and distribute them back to the songwriters and the publishers.
Awesome. So again, just clarifying that the MLC as an entity is paying songwriters and publishers. So you're paying on the underlying composition side and not the sound recording side. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. So the income streams that the MLC pays, because when I was learning it, I was really like, there are a couple key distinctions, because it's like US based, right? Is like only the streams that you're generating in the US.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
So yes, we are paying, of course, there are songwriters all over the globe, but we are paying all songwriters for US streams.
So do you pay international songwriters for their US streams? Or do international songwriters not sign up with the MLC because they're not US based?
So it depends really on the territory that they're in. Some countries have a CMO, a collective management organization, that specifically collects streaming royalties on behalf of their writers in their territory. And we would, so it really just depends on the territory. But I would say, generally speaking, check with your PRO in your territory to make sure. We also have a list of the CMOs and internationally that we have reciprocal agreements with, that we collect and send money to. So we're really focused on making sure that the US based writers are registering with us directly if they don't have a publisher or an administrator collecting on their behalf. And then if you are, I mean, I'm getting a little ahead of us. I know you're going to ask this question anyway, but if you are independent, meaning you do not have a publisher or you do not have a third-party administrator handling, you know, your royalties, then you would need to register with us directly in order to collect your streaming royalties from the MLC.
Excellent. So let's just take a quick pause there because that is super important and something I think there's a lot of confusion around. So we're just going to review that a little bit slower for folks. So, and this is actually going to answer some of the questions that I saw go by in the chat as well. So let's all remember back to the beginning of this Zoom when we were saying that if you are a songwriter, that you are also automatically a publisher. So if you do not assign your publishing, like if you sign a publishing deal and say, hey, publishing company X has the right to collect and distribute my publishing income to me with whatever deal you make with the publisher. If you don't do that, the publishing side is yours to claim, and you do not get it unless you have created a publishing entity and you are claiming the publishing income. So, what that means around the MLC and what Jamie is saying is that if you do have a publishing agreement, like with a publishing administrator, I saw in the chat somebody asked about Song Trust. Song Trust is one example of a songwriting, a publishing administrator, a company that offers that service. If you have a deal with a pub admin, for short, publishing administrator, Jamie, is that pub admin going to pay your MLC royalties out through their side?
Yes, if you have an administrator, if you have a third-party administrator, whether it's Song Trust, one of those types of companies, Cobalt, or you're using a different company, they will collect those royalties on your behalf and distribute them to you.
Perfect. So really for the folks who are like, do I need to register with the MLC? The first question is actually, well, do you have all of your distributed works, all of your songs that are out there in the world via a distributor? If they're all with a publishing administrator, so Song Trust or Centric or Cobalt or whatever publishing administration you might have opted into through your distributor. See, we're back to that. Like the distributor sometimes offers a publishing administration option that you can say, yes, I do want you to administer my publishing. If you already have that, you don't need to register directly with the MLC. You do need to register directly with the MLC if you don't have a publishing administrator and don't plan to get one for whatever reason. So in that case, they would register their songs, right, their works directly with you, with the MLC. And how would they go about doing that?
So and I also want to make the distinction that sometimes there are works that are not covered in your admin deal. So anything that doesn't fall under those deals, you have to make sure that those are registered as well with us. So yeah, we have a variety of tools on our website to help with the registration process. But the most important thing is our public database, which is accessible to everybody around the world, whether you are in the music business or not. It's just a more transparent way of finding rights holders. This is sort of the idea of making it more transparent, more streamlined, easier to pay out these royalties. Because as you can see, there are so many entities that are paying out royalties. So I always like to encourage people to just go into the public database, search for their names or their song title or whatever they're looking for specifically, but just make sure that, you know, because sometimes what happens is, you know, there's people covering your songs and they're out on a streaming platform. So these things are constantly getting updated. So it's important that, you know, you go in there, and even if you do have an administrator or a publisher, you can see sort of what pops up. And if there's anything missing, you can kind of go to your publisher or your administrator and make sure that all your bases are covered. But the first thing to do, if you are independent, make sure you go online, you register, and you create an account. And then from there, you can use our various tools to search and claim any songs that might already be in our database, or, you know, and there's also a matching tool where you match existing works that are in our database with things that are being performed or having activity on various streaming platforms. So there's a variety of ways, but we have an amazing support team. So the first step, though, is really just to go onto our website and get registered.
Fantastic.
And
And
it's
I'm
free.
seeing, awesome. Yes, that's also important, guys. So for the most part, I think so far most of the the agencies that are signing up to get these royalties coming through are free. Distributors might have some type of fee. Sometimes the distributor has a fee structure to distribute through their platform, but for the MLC, for Sound Exchange, for a PRO, generally, I think sometimes PROs may have like a what's the word, an application fee. But MLC is free. So if you're needing to go create that account and search to see if your works have been claimed, or you need to like figure out whether some of your works are with a pub admin and some you need to do yourself, it's free to sign up for the MLC. So once you have that account, and you've searched, you've claimed, you've matched, you've maybe uploaded the data that you need to, that wasn't with the MLC, when does someone start expecting to see payments, and how often do those payments come?
So we pay monthly, and the payments are distributed. Generally, it's 75 days from the last day of the month that the activity occurred. So say, we're looking at streams that happened in January, you would expect to see your payment for that activity in April.
Cool.
And
Okay.
it is a monthly distribution.
Great. So a couple rapid fire questions from the Q&A. Does every co-writer and publisher need to register the same song with the MLC to get paid? I'm assuming that means like every co-writer / publisher on one single work, like on one single song.
The short answer is no. If you are, newly registered with the MLC, that if that song's already in there in our database, then you would just claim your portion of the song.
Great. Based on whatever your split agreement is with
Correct.
your writers.
Correct.
Cool. So just confirming for somebody who asked, so if you use SongTrust, you don't need MLC, question mark. The answer to that is it depends. Is 100% of your works with SongTrust? Because if they all are, then probably you don't need to register directly with the MLC. But if you have any portion of your catalog that is not administered through SongTrust, then you would want to double check on that portion of your catalog and make sure that you register directly with the MLC, or choose to put that portion of your catalog through a pub admin so that you're getting paid your MLC royalties. Is that correct, Jamie?
That's right. You got it.
Awesome. So let's address this HFA thing because it's coming up a couple times. Harry Fox and the MLC. What are the differences? Do you need to register with both?
So we're collecting for streaming, specifically for streaming. Harry Fox traditionally handles the physical side of the mechanical royalties. So, and we should probably just sort of as a refresher, make sure people understand the difference between performance royalties and mechanical royalties, because I know that gets a little bit confusing as well. But basically, when as the owner or the rights holder for a musical composition or a song before it is actually recorded, you have the right to grant permission to others to reproduce and distribute your work in physical or digital format. And that is the mechanical license, which generates the mechanical royalty. So that's what we're talking about here. And previously, before the streaming age, that was just physical formats, right? Like vinyl, cassette, CD. So that all falls under really that part of of mechanical royalties that falls under like the Harry Fox type agencies of the world. We are specifically looking at streaming mechanical royalties. So any streaming platform that is using your music, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, SoundCloud, any of these digital service providers, that is the mechanical royalty that we're paying for streaming audio uses of your song.
Right. So registering with Harry Fox does not automatically register you with the MLC.
No, but you would potentially find some of your works already in our database, because basically our public database was sort of built off of Harry Fox's existing data. So
Great.
we
A
definitely-
couple different questions in the chat address how far back the MLC goes in paying historic streams. So if somebody's just getting it together today and registering, how far back does the MLC pay?
That's a great question. So we are basically going back to 2000, from 2007 to 2020. We're going back and paying out those historical earnings. But it's important to note that that's not going to be forever. We've been granted that permission to distribute these royalties because the law only came into play in 2020, and we only first started distributing in 2021. So from that period before the Music Modernization Act from 2007 to 2020, you can claim your royalties as of now, but it's really important that you do it soon because this will not last forever. Eventually, that will be redistributed like at other organizations, eventually it will get redistributed. So another, sense of urgency there. Don't wait, get registered, claim those royalties because you don't want it to be redistributed into the pool.
Yep. And for anybody in the chat or the Q&A who's asking, where do I do that? Where do I find my music in the database to claim? Please check out the links that Lacey dropped in the chat that have support links and articles to how to do that. The MLC has some great articles, some YouTube videos that really walk you through it. So in order to access the database, you just go on themlc.com. That's the website, Jamie?
That's it. And we have, this will be shared as well, but we have a great toolkit that has links to all of these resources. It has links to, I think Lacey shared it earlier, but we have this amazing, I'm going to try to share my screen. I don't know if it's going to work. It might not actually, because, can you see this?
I think we will in a second. Okay. Yep.
Okay. So this kind of encapsulates everything we've been talking about visually, right? So it breaks down all the streams that you're entitled to as a songwriter. These are all the various royalty streams you're entitled to, on the musical work side and on the sound recording side. And here is a QR code where you can download this and save it. So
That's awesome. So yeah, let's just give a quick second. So if you want to have that visual on the breakdown of your royalty streams and who pays them, that's what that was, Jamie, right? Sorry, it's a
Yeah.
little small on my screen because I have a split screen with my
Yeah, no worries.
document. And then, so we're just going to give you guys a quick second, pull out your phones and grab that screenshot, but also it's going to be coming to you in your follow-up email that you will receive with the replay of the webinar, right? Okay, so like when that comes through, if for some reason you did not snag the shot of that on your phone, you'll be able to get it when the replay gets sent out. Well, thank you, Jamie, because I know that the MLC is working very hard, individually as well to help people understand the differences between these royalty streams and really understand, like, why they need to register, what they need to register, who needs to register, et cetera. And I do see some more specific questions on that in the chat. So you might want to the Q&A. So if you want to hop in there and maybe answer some folks in there, that's cool. Or we could try to grab them on our final Q&A. But we are going to plow onward bravely. And I just want to thank you for being here and for sharing that overview. There's so much more to be learned about the MLC. And again, everybody, please check out the links in the chat that Lacey dropped. They're gold, and the MLC makes excellent content, especially things on YouTube that will just walk you through visually what you need to do to register, if indeed you do need to register.
There is one question that I saw, Cassandra, that I think is really important, just to end with, to really just like drill this in. The question was, if I'm with Sound Exchange, do I should I register with the MLC too? And the answer is yes. The answer is, I mean, really, it's the holy trinity of Sound Exchange, your PRO, and the MLC. You need to be registered with each of these organizations, all of them, in order to, because we're all collecting different royalty streams. So in order to collect all of your money, you need to be registered with your PRO, with the MLC, and with Sound Exchange.
Awesome. And the link to sign up or to deal with historical earnings, to get your historical earnings, it all starts with the MLC.com.
Yes, and you'll see on our homepage, there's a button on the top right that says Connect to Collect. If you just click into that, it'll take you through.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Jamie, and we will see you on the Q&A in a few more minutes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're so close to bringing it all together. One area that many of us as artists and songwriters kind of put off to the side, or maybe think like, oh, wait, I don't need to do that because, once the song is once I've recorded it, it's copywritten, right? Lots of questions around copyright. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Jessica Sabraj, who's the CEO of Cosynd, also our amazing co-presentational partner for RegFest today. So Jessica, come on up and
Hello.
let's debunk some copyright myths here, shall we?
Oh, my favorite thing to do, especially with you, Cass. We've done this a couple times. But first,
We
kudos
have.
to you for putting this together and the MLC for platforming all of these folks, because there is so much valuable information here and it can get so cumbersome to manage. So gracias to you all for doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to really acknowledge that. I saw at least one person in the chat who said, I think I'm more confused now. And I do really encourage you to take a deep breath, all of us to take a deep breath and realize that, yes, this is a lot of information. Yes, the nuances are specific. That's why we're going to have this as a replay. That's why all of these organizations have websites that we'll be sharing where you can go and find out more, do more of a deep dive if you want to, ask questions. Okay. So again, you guys are doing great just being here and being willing to take it all in. And ultimately, just like anything, the more you spend time with this and understand it over time, it's going to become more manageable. It's going to become more second nature. You're going to see how these pieces fit together. And most importantly, you're just going to feel like, oh, okay, I know where I need to register now that I haven't. And you're just going to go do it. And then that money is going to start coming to you automatically. And hooray for getting paid automatically. So Jessica, break it down for us. Why is it so important to register with the US Copyright Office, and how does that relate to us making money?
Yeah, of course. Such a great question. So while there is no such thing as global copyright protection, registering with the Copyright Office here in the US is the closest thing you can get to that. Because when you register here in the US, you're actually getting reciprocal protection around the world in 175 plus countries. So that means, let's say something happens with your music, it's infringed in Canada, in Germany, in France, in Italy. Because you've registered locally in the US, you're automatically entitled to all the benefits of registration in each of those individual countries. So when I say protection, what does that actually mean, right? So when you register with the Copyright Office, you're given a number of benefits, but the most important of all is that now gives you the ability to sue, lawsuits, sue for infringement, sue for lost income. It also entitles you to statutory damages. So if you've registered early enough, you're entitled to $150,000 per willful infringement, plus your attorney's fees. And that is the hidden bonus benefit that I don't think gets talked about enough, but it's the reason why copyright registration is so important and how in the long run, it can end up paying you pretty significantly once you encounter an issue of infringement. And these days, literally all of us are encountering some kind of infringement. If it's not somebody registering your works with a PRO mistakenly, it's maybe AI scraping your music and doing all kinds of wonky things with it. So that is the main benefit to registration with the US Copyright Office. It's both a shield and a giant sword.
Awesome. So how much does it cost to register? And I think you just proved that it's worth it. You know, that question comes up a lot, like, hey, is it worth me spending the money to register? But what does it actually cost?
Yeah, so on average, a registration can cost $65 at minimum. There are some instances where it can cost more. So if you're registering, for example, a group of unpublished songs or sound recordings, then the registration fee is $85. If you're registering an entire website and you're a news organization, like some of our new clients, the cost is $95. So one of the benefits to using Cosynd to do your registrations is you actually don't have to think about like what is the right application type that I should be using? Like what is the fee that I should be paying? You don't have to do any of the calculations because we do it for you. Using the Copyright Office's website, unless you've done it before, it's not really second nature to a lot of people. Some folks have a hard time even figuring out like which application should I use. There's the standard worker performing rights, there's the standard of sound recordings, there's the unpublished, there's the group serials, there's like 20 something different combinations of applications and it gets really confusing. So when you use Cosynd, you don't even have to think about like what application type. It's a very easy system. The first question we're going to ask you is, hey, what are you trying to register? Is it a piece of music? Is it a book? Is it literature? Is it, you know, an image? So we try to use very like bare bones, very like non-jargony verbiage to get you through the funnel.
Awesome. And so how long does it take to register the copyright and get it back? There was a question in the chat about, you know, somebody who had actually signed up and gone through that process and still hasn't heard back about their copyright.
It can take a while, especially if you end up in a funnel where you're having to do examiner back and forth. So one thing that's important to note is registration with the Copyright Office isn't exactly the same thing as registration with a PRO where you're kind of just like listing your tracks in order. Once you've actually gone through the application process, there's an examination process. So there are 120 examiners at the Copyright Office who are actually looking through every single submission. They're reading through the entire application. They're listening to literally every single second of audio. And that's no joke. They will go start to finish. There's no like automatic, like, hey, we're going to approve this. And what are they looking for? They're looking for examples of samples. They're looking to see if this is a remix and not an original work. They're looking to see if maybe there's some component of your song that maybe you didn't create, like you've used a sample of a news broadcast or you know sound effects. And so when that happens, there's a trigger of like, hey, we've got to look into this, we've got to figure it out. Sometimes the process can even take as long as a year plus if you get stuck in that cycle. And one of the things to know too is you don't really know like where you're going to end up in terms of which examiner you'll get assigned to. Some of them have super long queues, some of them have really short queues. We had a client last night who had a registration they were working on, a pretty well-known artist actually, and they had been waiting for a year for something to come through because the examiner had been on leave, and I don't think it was ever reassigned to somebody. So things like that are important to note. What I think what the takeaway too is you shouldn't actually wait until something happens with your music to then go and do the registration. Because one, it can be 20 times more expensive to get the work registered if you have to do it really quickly. The Copyright Office has a special option called special handling, and that means you can get your registration done within 5 days, but it costs like $800 to do, right? Because they have to assign someone to it right away and they've got to turn it around. And you only really would want to do that if you're about to hop into litigation, because again, you can't actually go and file that lawsuit unless you've done the registration.
Okay. And is the copyright fee charged per song, independent of whether you do it directly with the US Copyright Office or you do it through Cosynd?
So that's a really great question. There are a number of options, both at the Copyright Office and at Cosynd, where you can register more than one thing for the same $65. I think when we started the company, that was probably the main barrier to people wanting to register and take that step because it seems really expensive, right? Like $65 to register one song, it may or may not be worth it unless all of a sudden you have an issue of your work being infringed and then it's suddenly really worth it. There are some platforms that will charge you upwards of $200 to register one thing. So our goal was to really make things as affordable as possible. One of the new things that we're releasing later this year is the ability for a composer and for a producer to register as many as 50 plus beats on one application for that one fee, utilizing some rules of the Copyright Office that allow for that. So I think, when it comes to figuring out like what you will register, our rule of thumb is that you should be registering the things that are high earners for you, the things that are out there that have the most likelihood of being infringed, the things that maybe you're already experiencing some infringement with. And then secondary to that, you should be registering anything where there's any sort of discrepancy in ownership. Like a thing that we encounter a lot of the times is we get inquiries like, hey, I worked on this song with a co-writer or a producer, and we didn't have any paperwork in place. So I'm not actually sure who owns my music. And that's a really scary thought, to be in a situation where you don't know who actually owns the copyright to your music, but now something's happened and you've got to go and register it, or you've got to do that for the purposes of working with an attorney. Having a very, very clear breakdown as to who owns what and how much they own is fundamental to registering not only just with the Copyright Office, but with all of the organizations on here.
Yeah, so a couple people in the chat are asking around registering songs individually or being able to register a group of songs to save money. Is that an option that is offered through Cosynd?
Yeah, that is. And we make those rules for when that's appropriate really clear on our website.
Mhm.
So here are a couple of like rule of thumb things if you're going to try to register an album or try to register a group of videos or whatever it is. In general, they need to have the same author and the same owner. The exception to that is there is an application at the Copyright Office called a GRAM, GRAM. And you can use that application if you have multiple co-writers. So for example, you've got 10 songs and 5 of them are written by me and Cass, but the other 5 are written by me and Jamie. In that instance, I can use 2 GRAM applications. One is going to register, or sorry, I can actually use one. One is going to register all 10 songs because I am the common author between both myself and Jamie, right? So there are some nuances to when that's appropriate and when that's not. We outline that pretty well on our website. But the at the end of the day, I think it's important for creators to really bake this into their process in terms of figuring out what are the things that I absolutely want to protect and how quick can I get it done.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm just hop into the Q&A here because I know that there were a couple of questions I saw going by. Should you wait to release a song until it has an approved copyright?
No. So both the USCO and your attorney and Cosynd will tell you do not wait to release your song until it has been approved because it can take a long time. Once you've already created your song, you automatically are a copyright holder. You have a number of benefits that are immediately available to you. Registration with the Copyright Office is just going to give you that added protection where you now have this ability to take action. And that's really important when we think about in more recent news, some of the major lawsuits that we've seen against AI. When we think about like some of the things the NMPA is doing or AIMP, they're all able to action those things on behalf of their members because their members have registered with the Copyright Office already. So I know some folks are like, hey, like this organization just did like its multi-million-dollar settlement with so and so. Where's my piece of the pie? Don't I like get that in my statement or something? And no, unless you've like registered and you've been an active participant in that, you don't immediately benefit. So that's why you'll see a lot of these organizations like, get out their cheerleading uniforms and be like, yes, we need you to register so that we can take action on your behalf. And like it happens to everybody. We had a client, a small label in Trinidad, for example, who had someone stealing their royalties from them. We had a production library that had 1,000 songs and those 1,000 songs were used accidentally on another platform 80,000 times a day. 80,000 times a day. was how much their music was being infringed, and they then turned around and were trying to sue that platform for 100 million plus. That's how statutory damages can add up. My favorite is we had a producer who's based out in Maryland, and he's just this unknown guy who's like, doing this as a hobby, and he's putting music out there in the world. And he had a major label sample 12 of his beats. Like somehow these beats made it to this record. And this record was sold like over 1 million times. And he approached the label and said, "Hey, I just want like writing credit. I don't even want any money. I just want writing credit because that's going to do what like amazing things for my career." And the first thing that any infringer will do is they'll go and look up to see if you're actively registering your copyrights. Because if you are, they know they have to pay up because of statutory damages. If you're not, which this guy wasn't, they kind of just say, "Okay, poo poo, like we're not gonna deal with you." So he came to us and we did his registrations for him. Literally within a couple of weeks, that label cut him a check for a couple $1 million because the statutory damages add up and people know this.
Yeah. So again, just for everybody who's on, since RegFest, is really about monetization, we want to stress that protecting your copyrights and the protection piece is really related to monetization. So even though you might not get it in the beginning, right? It seems like I know for me sometimes that there are some songs that I'm like, well, I just wrote this song. I'm only playing a few shows coming up. So, if I play the song in these shows, or it's the song's not out yet. So, who would really infringe on the song? But the reality is that, hey, anybody could be out there thinking, oh, that's a cool melody. I'm gonna grab that, or, I love that concept and I'm just gonna kind of take that. Or there's so many ways that your work could show up somewhere else, and if you have not registered and protected your copyright, then you don't have the same rights to to reparations for that, as Jess is saying. So
Like this thing, like the scariest thing for us right now is just AI, right? We have no idea how AI is scraping and what they're doing and all of this stuff. So, there's a very good chance that a lot of like independents are getting their works completely ripped directly by AI. So keep an eye on that space.
right. All right, Jess, thank you so much. I know that we could deliver a whole thing together, and we did at I think the CD Baby conference a few years ago.
Yeah.
But since we do want to honor everybody's time, our panelists' time, as well as all of yours who've made the time to be with us today, we're going to bring everybody back on screen for just a few minutes, and we are going to do our best. I know there are so many open questions here, but we're going to try to just go rapid fire and start at the beginning with folks that asked early on. That said, while we're getting everybody back on screen here, so Lacey, you can bring everybody back if possible. What I'll do now is just say again, thank you to the MLC and to Cosynd for co-presenting this first edition of RegFest. Also, and thank you guys for participating. Even if your question doesn't get answered directly here, please know that each one of these organizations has contact forms on their website. I think Lacey's going to be dropping some links in the chat as well for places that you can reach out to if you have additional questions for each individual organization. As well, each of the organizations here today has social media, as do I. So I am on Instagram at Cassandra Kubinski. If you have additional questions, feel free to DM me, and I will try to make sure that you get your answer, or that at least we get you, quarterbacked off to the right place to get your question answered. So do feel free to link with me there and DM if you have questions. And so with that, hi, welcome back, everybody. We're going to just try to dive in here. So Stephen asks if he's recording some classical piano pieces, Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Chopin, does he need to register for the sound recording, and how would he list it as an ISRC in places like Sound Exchange? So Mark, do you want to grab that from the Sound Exchange side?
Yeah. So, so specifically with this, again, like, so if you obviously record your own songs, or even, if you're putting up cover songs, like in this instance, you're creating a new sound recording as the performer. And so what you would do is you would make sure that you are not only registered with Sound Exchange as a performer, but also as a rights owner, because you are technically the rights owner of that new sound recording, that cover. So, so how would you do that? You would actually, like I said, make sure you register with Sound Exchange, and then you can submit a recording once you're signed up as a sound recording copyright owner. I think the main thing with that is just making sure that I guess at that point you've got it all set up. I think the ultimate thing is just making sure that you get set up as both a copyright owner and as a performer on that. That would be the main thing out of that. Also, you mentioned the ISRC code. You would receive that through your distributor more than likely, and you get a lot of metadata through that. So once you have your metadata, you'll be able to submit it to Sound Exchange in order to associate it to your account.
Right. We see a question, what is pub admin? Liam, we did address that in terms of you own your publishing side as a writer unless you assign that. So a pub admin is short for publishing administrator, and that would be a company such as Songtrust or Centric. When you distribute your work, you might have the opportunity to opt in to have that distributor administer your publishing. So that would be what a pub admin is. Let's see. I'm just scanning through to see what questions come up the most. Wow, so many good questions here. I think we answered a lot of this. Diana asks, when we release our original music, we are paid through the music distributor like CD Baby and not the PRO. Is that correct? Katie, do you just want to clarify that? I know we covered that, but we'll just confirm that one more time.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so when you're signing up with your PRO, you are receiving the performance royalty. So it's just as a writer, like whenever your songs are being played on radio, streaming platforms, live at like, live concert venues like that, that's the royalty that you'd be receiving. If you're, obviously there's, like I talked about, the performance royalty, the mechanical royalty, there's all these different types of royalty streams you can get depending on which way your music is used, but that's the main royalty that BMI pays out on. The only royalty that BMI pays out on.
This, I think, is for Jen. John asks, my biggest concern is making sure I can use/control my ISRC and UPC, not the distributors. So does a distributor control your ISRCs, your UPCs, or do they just assign them and then you still are actually in control of them?
That's exactly right. It's just an assignment. We as through laws for your distributor wouldn't own it at that point. And if you change distributors, you have the right to keep your metadata and make sure you reassign that ISRC to the same song. Otherwise you lose like popularity data, stream counts, any placements on playlists, stuff like that. So it is important to kind of retain that. And I don't know if this was part of the question too, but if you have your own ISRCs or you assign your own UPCs to your products, most distributors will accommodate that in that you can use your own and register and kind of bring it in instead of using the ones that the distributor would supply.
Right. And Luis asks, what is a fair percentage share with the distributor if they're only distributing the music? And I know that this varies by distributor, but can you give us some insight onto kind of maybe like a range of standard splits with distributors?
Yeah, so a lot of subscription-based models will be 100% flow through. So you sign up, you pay monthly or yearly fee, and all of those royalties come to you directly, and the distributor wouldn't retain any. As you get into more like deep partnerships or partnerships where the distributor is incentivized to make sure you're making the most money, then at that point you would likely be owing a certain percent. Major distribution entities can sometimes charge up to like 30%, and that's if they're also doing label services, also doing physical distribution. Some of these companies have 40-person commercial teams that are pitching your music localized to certain areas and platforms. So yeah, the more you get out of it, the more you'll pay, I guess. So that's also part of the research when you're looking at who to distribute your music through.
Cool. Ed asks, similarly to, we had another question about group songwriting, or being in a group with multiple folks. So question for Mark Rucker, I'm in a group with 5 other folks and we co-own our songs and recordings. Can I register our songs on behalf of all of us, or do we each need to sign up with Sound Exchange individually?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes, you can do one or both, right? The answer really is we always try to get each performer of a band to register individually. The reason being is because they might be a part of several different projects. Our mandate is where we can only pay featured artist royalties to the artist directly or to a company that they are an owner of. So the other option would be if you signed up and claimed the recordings as the owner of the LLC or as a corp, and then you would have all your band members be a part of that, and that's how you guys would want paid out. You could do that as well. But again, we always recommend if you have 3 members or 5 members, to try to get everyone on signed up as an individual because they might have multiple different groups that they're a part of or other projects that they would want to claim that wouldn't be a part of the overall group. So yeah, great question. But again, both are possible. It's really just on how you guys want to set it up.
Another question for you, does the collection for Sound Exchange include internet radios such as Radio Indie Alliance, which I'm not sure what that is, but does it include internet radio?
Yeah, so very specific to internet radio. So yeah, like I said, we call it non-interactive digital radio. It's satellite radio, it's internet radio. That I don't know if it's a specific, but it's about over 3,200 service providers around the world that we work with on this. But notice I didn't say terrestrial radio, which I don't want to get into that here, but there's a lot of nuance to these rules. But yes, very specific to satellite and internet radio.
Cool, thank you. Music. Okay. Lawrence asks, is it important to, in addition to copywriting your music and lyrics, to also copyright the sound recording in order to collect from Sound Exchange? So this is actually kind of because this is a copyright question, but does the master or the sound recording need to be copywritten to collect from Sound Exchange, Mark?
No, it needs to be distributed, right? So,
Right.
but I'm guessing, I'm sure that even from a copyright perspective, once it's distributed, it's kind of in that form, so to speak. But that's the same for Sound Exchange. Once it's distributed and you have the metadata, you can sign up to claim on it, assuming it's getting airplay.
Right, but that said, back to Jess, you can and should copyright the sound recording too, right, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do the sound recording, you can do your composition, you can do your album art. But I would say the top 2, your composition, your sound recording, hands down.
Cool. A few questions about automatic link ups. So if a song isn't listed on Sound Exchange but has a sound recording copyright, does it automatically interface with the copyright.gov records? My understanding is no, but
No, not that not that I'm aware of. I don't think we share records like that. I think it's more of for us, we're trying to associate this with the airplay that we're receiving. And so we get, metadata and airplay reports from our service providers who tell us, this is what we played, and then we try to match it with our records, essentially what you guys are submitting to us, what we're able to pull. And so that's how that happens. So yeah, technically it wouldn't be connected.
okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A quick thing to note too, like don't assume that, your PRO or any society or even your publisher or your label are registering with the Copyright Office. In most cases, they're not. I can see Katie going like, yeah, no. It's good to ask your publisher and your label if they're doing that. Most likely they're not. We're finding that, like, especially with labels, like 85% of stuff isn't registered yet.
All right, so a few questions here in the chat, which are for various folks here on our panel. People are asking, what if my registration is wrong? What if I discover that my producer accidentally put in the wrong information, like too much or too little of a percentage of a song? Or what if I need to change the information on a BMI registration? So do we maybe just want to go down the line quick and say, like, well, what do you do if you need to change the information on a registration? Katie, let's start with you because I know
Go
that came up
first. Yeah, I
for
was gonna
BMI.
say I can start with that. So on the BMI side, if you have a song you notice that's in your catalog that's maybe incorrect or the shares aren't complete, like something is NA or somebody put too much or too little, you would want to reach out immediately as soon as you found out to Revise Works at bmi.com. And I answered a question in the chat that popped up earlier, just explaining that we need permission from every interested party before making any changes to a work, just to avoid anyone, like let's say a band breaks up and the whole band hates each other. And this one writer is like, I want this other writer off every single song. Like, don't want them to earn anymore. You can't do that. And so we can't just like take people off of a song without knowledge and permission and acknowledgement from all the different writers that are also on that song. So you'll need to reach out to Revise Works, let us know what the situation is, and they will ask for an LOD from the other co-writers to give permission to edit or amend the shares on the song. So it can take some time. Revise Works, as you can imagine, gets a ton of requests on like a daily basis. But if you ever need to speed stuff up, you can always obviously follow up. And I'll put my email in the chat too if you wanted to just like copy me on stuff so I can make sure it gets expedited. That's a good
That's
question.
awesome. Awesome. Cool. Just kind of scanning down. Listen, you guys are so amazing. You have such great questions. And as you can imagine, I know 184 of you have hung out with us for over an hour and a half. So, yeah, we are going to have to wrap this up in just a moment, but I'm just trying to see if there's anything that I think we really need to answer here. Again, a lot of your questions are actually, we did cover some of this on this event. So some of this is just going to be in the replay. You're going to want to go back and watch the replay. And then if there's something super, super specific to you, particularly if you already have an account with one of these entities like Sound Exchange or a PRO, or Cosynd or the MLC, everybody has support links, right? And I think Lacey has some of those links that she can drop into the chat for where you would want to direct your specific question. Well, this is actually an interesting question. How does the agency, whichever agency you're at, confirm that the reporting individual is actually the right person to be presenting that information, that they're the copyright owner or the owner of the info? Does anyone want to snag that?
Well, I'll just say,
Yeah,
I mean, I was gonna say, Jessica,
No, no.
real fast. We have an office in DC of people that really work on this every day. We obviously use new technology, but we also have people going in by hand to make sure, because there is a lot of fraud prevention that needs to go into this for all these companies. Again, as you guys can imagine, it's a lot of metadata, and it's a lot of information, and it's not always complete. There's a lot of incomplete information that we're working on. So yeah, there is a pretty big part behind it. But again, we have an office in DC that works on this every day, and yeah, it's pretty great.
Yes, I was
Awesome.
going to say on the Copyright Office side of it too, there's actually a penalty. So if you're lying on your application, there's like a $2,500 penalty that the federal government imposes on you. And then that's all part of the examination process too, is making sure like this application's on the up and up.
Wow. All right, last question, because I saw it come up a couple times from Mark. Do people need to register separately if they're the rights owner, like the master owner, the sound recording owner, and the featured artist on a track? Do they have to have two different accounts or two different registrations through Sound Exchange?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So technically, you can sign up as one or either or both, right? And then so say you sign up today as just the featured artist, and then you go, oh man, I just realized, a month from now I'm the rights owner as well. You can add that later, but essentially what you would have is you would have two different profiles on your account as a featured artist, where you would claim what you would be as a featured artist, and then as a rights owner, where you would claim what you are as a rights owner, because those might not necessarily be the same things, right? You might own old recordings, but your new recordings are owned by someone else or by a label. You might have been a part of a band 5 years ago that you're able to claim as a featured artist, but you're no longer in that band, and you claim your recordings now as a featured artist, just as a solo artist. So yeah, the answer really is it's kind of, however you guys would like to set it up initially. But again, you can always add that other profile later, assuming that you need to.
Great. Thank you. All right, everybody. Well, I know we're a couple minutes over. I want to thank everybody for being here again to our incredible experts here. Jessica, Mark, Katie, Jen, Jamie, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all of your wisdom and all of this information and for making it so clear. I mean, you guys really know your stuff. I guess you should, but you know what? Thank you for being willing to share it with us all. Again, big thanks to the MLC for making this event possible and Cosynd for co-presenting and co-promoting. Thank you to Lacey for running the back end of our Zoom. That was huge. This is a massive chat and Q&A going on. And again, thank you guys for your patience, for your dedication, for being here, for your interest in learning and leveling up. Again, there will be a replay, okay? So we're all going to go take a walk, right? And get some fresh air and like let all of this information settle. You will be able to review it. So that replay will be going out to the email that you registered for RegFest with. Again, I'm Cassandra Kubinski. I am in the trenches with you as an artist and a songwriter and a producer. You can find me at Cassandra Kubinski on socials, and do feel free to DM me if you have either feedback about RegFest or if you have a specific question you didn't get answered, and I will make sure that we get you to the resource that you need to have that question answered. I think that is all the time that we have today. So again, thank you all. Happy spring, and you know, cheers to our ongoing creativity and success, and also getting paid for it. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.